Hello, it is episode 10 of the Outdoor Cameraman Experience. I am Jess DiLorenzo, my co-host Jake Latondras of Latondras Media Collective. We're excited to be back today. We have special guest Doug Steinke here, who is a very accomplished professional photographer in the outdoors. So we'll be talking to him later and updating you guys on some things that we're going to add into our YouTube channel. So there's lots of stuff to chat about today. But let's catch up with Jake. You had a pretty fun weekend.
Good morning, Jess.
Yeah, good morning.
How's everything?
Everything is good. Busy. This week was crazy with work and other things, and then it's just been raining nonstop here, so you can't go outside.
It's actually been raining here too. Out here in the West, it's very dry all the time anyway. So any rain we can get is more than welcomed.
Yeah, I mean, we needed it for sure. So I'm sure all the farmers are happy and we're happy our lawns aren't dying, but I really need to get outside and spruce up tree stands, put up cameras, get mineral down. Like I really haven't done too much yet. So I am really
It's
behind.
time. What is it? July 24th. It's the third week of July, which is, that go time where everybody's getting their cameras out and you pretty much know what you've got in terms of the bucks within velvet are they're 90% grown, and it's time to get those stands up and cut shooting lanes and all that good stuff. So
Half
it's
my
in the
stands are
air.
like trash from last year because we had so many storms over the winter and trees fell, and I don't even know that I can use the same. My stand on my property actually has a tree sitting on it right now, so I
I'm glad
have
you're not in it.
yeah, I have a lot of work to do.
Yes, that's the same tree that fell over the stand on the other side of your food plot there.
No, well, yeah, I have a couple spots there, but this is a double set that I have, and a tree fell, so we have to clear that out and make sure that the stands weren't hit or anything because there's some limbs on them.
Right. Well, you better get to work. It's time.
I have some work to do.
Speaking of which, I had a big weekend with my son out on the Platte River. We went out to visit Ryan Livingston, who is the owner of Prairie Rock Outfitters and the general manager at Rush Creek Adventures.
Hmm.
And I had never been to their property. Ryan's been telling me all about this property. It's 300,000 acres. It's 19.6 miles of North Platte River bottom, and it's one of the most beautiful continuous pieces of private property that I've ever been to. So Ryan gave us a little spot to pop my camper up on, and we plugged it in. So we had electricity and all that. And I took my son Walker out, who's now 4, out camping for the very first time, and it was a blast. It was
That's
just,
awesome.
yeah, it was so great. He was being busy being a boy, catching frogs and crickets and grasshoppers, and Ryan took us, around the property on his quad. So yeah, it was quite the experience for him. I think he's ready to go back like yesterday.
Yeah, Emmy always has a blast too when we take her out. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get her to transition from whatever activity or whatever she's doing into something else, but when she's there, she's loving it. She likes digging through the riverbeds and things when we're fishing. And um, does Walker have an interest in your camera? Because Emmy is starting to pick up my camera all the time, which I love, but I also don't love because every time she picks it up, it's thousands of dollars in her tiny little hands. But I'm
Yeah.
excited that she is showing interest in it, and plus, just being interested in the outdoors is always a plus. But how does Walker feel about like Daddy taking pictures and making movies and
He I get one shot. I mean, I get the first moment when I say, please, okay, hold still right there, Walker. He gives me like 5 seconds. So I have enough time. And of course, it's outside and my settings are set on long shutter speeds and exposures because I just did something inside the camper. And then all of a sudden I can't get it, I can't get all my adjustments right. And so all my pictures are blown out. And then by the time I get it set up, he's ready to go do
yeah,
something else, and then it's a total fight.
it's like photographing wild animals?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Or worse. I think you have less time with kids.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, we shot a video. We did a 2 camera setup, and I'm not going to tell exactly what it is, but we got a new shotgun. And last year, when Walker turned 3, I bought him a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun for his birthday. And now it's time for him to graduate up. He's not going to go out and shoot a 12 gauge, obviously, but I did.
I hope not.
I did. I got a new shotgun, and we did the unboxing, and I guess I offered it to him, for the rest of his life, so he could then hand it down to his son one day. So
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah, it's
Very
pretty cool.
special.
Yeah.
Nice. Real quick, Jordan Frommer wants to know, do you guys duck hunt at all?
Oh my God. Are you
Yes.
kidding me?
Well, actually, I shouldn't say yes. I've duck hunted only a handful of times, and Jake is duck hunting guru. So yeah,
I don't know about that, but I did. I grew up, Jordan Fromer, is that right?
I think so.
Yes, I grew up duck hunting in West Tennessee and some in Central Arkansas on the Grand Prairie. And then, I mean, that's where I really cut my teeth. And in fact, my second professional video gig ever was with RNT, which was back in 2003. And I have been working for them and with them, particularly with Jim Ronquest and Blake Fisher. We work very closely together. So, yes, I'm always in and around the waterfowl community a lot. In fact, our special guest today, Doug Steinke, that's how he and I met. He's an unbelievably talented photographer. He has been centered and featured in the waterfowl world before it was the cool thing to do. He was publishing images and Ducks Unlimited and Wildfowl and Nebraska Land Magazine way before all this cool social media stuff started, and that's how he and I met through Avery Outdoors. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Doug, not only is he a fabulous photographer, he set trends. He was a game changer in the photography world and the outdoor photography world. And not only all that, but he's a great guy. So we're really looking forward to having him on today.
Well, let's bring him in and get into a little bit more detail about when you guys first met and started working together. So let's welcome Doug Steinke to our show.
Hi there.
Hey, Doug.
Yay. Hey. What's up, Doug?
Good. I'm trying to keep the boys off of the internet. And yeah, so we're kind of still skipping a little bit here. But yeah. Well, this is an old house. Yeah. I live in a very old house. And it's got literally 2-foot walls with the wire, the mesh and the whole concrete deal. So
the lath and plaster.
Oh, so your signal is real awesome going from room to room.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, it's
No wonder you like the town pump so much.
Yeah.
Is that an early 1900s house?
Yeah, 1927.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, 27 or 29, somewhere in there.
You and Lee chose, and that must be like the mature, badass photography thing to live in an old classic house, because Lee Chose lives in a house very similar to that, and it's all decorated with his fabulous photography. So I can just imagine what your place looks like as well.
Yeah, I'm looking around here. Yeah, this is we've kind of made this little room. It's kind of got a fireplace, and it's a dark room, and yeah, it's about the only place that my wife would let me put up my prints for a long time. So, this is kind of my little room. But
well, if you run out of room, just send me a few of them. I'll put them up in my house.
Well, that's that other room that I was in that we didn't have good access. It was like the land of misfit toys. I have literally, I hate doing prints, for people want prints and things like that. And I've got literally a dozen prints that either have chips in them or dented, or they come, like I did one of the Masters for a guy, his birthday this spring, right after the Masters golf tournament, and it came in like a Menards piece of wood. It was just all twisted, and I was like, it's frustrating.
Man. Bummer.
Yeah, to get consistency with that. But anyway. But
so we need to talk about your background, and And speaking of photos and in your house, I want to ask you a question. Of all the photos in your house, which one is your favorite? And would it be one
Mm,
that we've all seen before?
Probably not. No, no. I'm looking at two of them. There's one of my son Gage at McConaughey in the
Mm,
grass. That's a black and white. That's really nice. And then probably, well, this one behind me.
I was
That's
going
a
to
good
say
one.
that's a good
Uh,
one.
that's Big Jim Langford.
Hmm.
That fishes with Chris.
You bet.
Yeah, so that's us and the boys up at Saratoga, fly fishing one day. That's one of my favorites. But there's another
McConaughey
one.
is the lake that
Yep.
you used to live on, Jake, and you guys kind of hung out and met each other around that area a long time ago.
I got to tell this quick story. I don't know. I don't even know if we've talked about this. Maybe, Doug. When I moved to Lake McConaughey back in 2002, and
Every time you guys say McConaughey, all I can think of is Matthew McConaughey, and I'm like, all right, all right, all right.
mushy brain,
So does Becky. Yeah.
All
mushy
right.
brain. Yeah. So, anyway, I bought a business on Lake McConaughey. It was a bait shop, and at the time, the lake was very low. We were having a 500-year drought out here in Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska. The whole Platte River system was literally going dry. In fact, that lake was it's 26 miles long when it's full, and it was down to, I believe, 6 miles long, 6 or 8 miles long. And so, I was going to your dad. Your dad worked for Central Nebraska
Yeah. Yep.
NCPPDDDBBB or whatever it is, the
Yeah.
acronym.
Yeah. A few of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in charge of he knew pretty much everything about the water levels on the lake and how much discharge was going to be left out. And it was a very big concern for out there because the farmers needed the water for irrigation, and the people the visitors to Lake McConaughey and the people that own businesses on the lake needed the water for recreational purposes. So there was a big, fight and debate. So I inherently got to know your dad, and I will never forget when your dad and I started to become friends. He said, "You really need to meet my son," because all I could talk about was hunting and what I was doing on Lake McConaughey, and all the recreational things that I had plans for. And he said, "Oh, you got to meet my son. He takes a lot of photos." And I was like, "Oh yeah, whatever." And he goes, "No, no, no, no. You don't understand. He takes thousands and thousands of photos." And I said, "What is his name?" And he said, "Doug Steinke." And that's how I was introduced to you on a direct personal level. And then I knew who you were because of the images that you had been publishing in Ducks Unlimited at the time and whatever other magazines that I saw. So that's how I learned to know about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background as a photographer?
I was a photographer. Like everybody, I loved it when it was filmed. I remember even as a little kid. I've been a duck nut. I've been a diehard duck hunter since 6, 7, 8 years old. I remember stealing my parents' little, Instamatics or whatever, and trying to take pictures of flocks of ducks going back and forth to school when I was in 5th grade. I'd put it in my pocket and then just take snapshots as I was going to lunch back and forth, like during the spring. But
So
did
they're doing
that. I
50
did.
miles an hour one way, and you're doing 50-mile-an-hour the other
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I did that, and then in college I was really into it, but it just cost too much. Like anybody, it's like everybody else's old stories than my age. I remember I didn't go to any exotic places for spring break. I saved all my money for film to go take pictures out, by Holdridge and Lexington where I grew up at, and saved all that money for the 36 exposure 800 ISO film, that you could barely get at 2 camera shops in Lincoln. But
Right.
yeah, and then went to college, got a water resources degree, was in the kind of the engineering field for a while, and then worked at a natural resource district for 11 years. And then our family became too big for 2 careers, basically. And I became a horrible employee because I was hunting too much, basically. Well, yeah, there's a long story, but basically I got burned out of water policy. I just got tired of all the fighting, and I knew that I never could make a difference in water policy or anything like that. And so I was just resigned to being a field technician. And at that point in time, my wife is a family practice doctor, and her practice was just exploding at that time. And got to the point where the nurses were taking care of our kids, picking them up from daycare and things. Because I'd be out in the field working. And I remember one time I was out of Gothenburg. It's like 2.5 hours away from Grand Island. I just started a water project where I was taking water samples. And once I start that project, it was like 6 hours once you started it. And I just barely had started, and Becky called and said, hey, I got kids. I got 3 deliveries this afternoon. There's no way I can pick up the kids. And then I came home and went, wow, this just isn't going to work. And my boss agreed and basically said, you're fired or you quit, one of the two. You need to go home. So I went home and became a stay-at-home dad with at that time they were 6, 4, and 1. So
that's exactly where I am at this point.
Oh, good night. Yeah. You survive. You do. You will survive.
That's good to know. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket.
Yeah. So
that really opened up your time as a freelance photographer. I mean, so it was a blessing in disguise somewhat, because that offered you the opportunity to get out and do more field work with your camera.
And at that time I was just starting to do some stuff with Avery. And, at that point in time, when you're on the pro staff, they would send you stuff. You had to take so many shots and start, supplying them with photos. And that kind of I think that got the attention of John Hoffman, who used to be at Avery, that moved to Ducks Unlimited. And they're like, hey, who's this guy taking this product shot? This is kind of good. And then Tom Matthews would just kind of relay things back and forth. And then, I just had to do like everybody else, like at Nebraska or at Ducks Unlimited. You send in about 30 or 40 photos, and you go from there, whether you're accepted onto the list or not. So
I did a podcast with Bill Cooksey. I'm getting feedback, audio feedback. Are you?
Are you,
Jess?
No, I'm not. Oh, I hear it, but it's not on my end.
Hello. Check 1, 2, 3. Okay, now it's better. Yes.
Okay,
like poltergeist sound.
So, Bill Cooksey and I, who's actually on here watching right now live, he and I did a podcast on Duck South with Rocky LaFleur yesterday, and your name came up several times because we went back in time in history at the Avery brand and talked about how, photography and pro staff really got that brand going and turned them into a dominant force way back when, which is really how you and I got to know each other, through Avery. So where exactly did you get your start? Was it you went to Avery first and then that transcended into a Ducks Unlimited relationship?
Yeah, actually, it was like I sent you in that email yesterday. It was actually through a magazine called waterfowler.com. And I wrote an article for them, and I am horrible at the English language, grammar, words, spelling, whatever. I put more work into that article than I probably was putting in at my regular work, which was probably another reason why I was told to go somewhere else. But anyway, did that first, and then it was Nebraska land, actually. And then I was hunting with all my buddies, taking these photos, sending the photos to them on emails every week of our past hunts. And there's the kid. But John Farrar was his name, and he was having John Farrar, Mike Livingston, and Gary Ebert would have, like everybody has like golf league night. They'd have decoy carving night on Wednesdays, and basically it was an excuse to get together to drink a little scotch. But he was having problems on an article getting photos, and he goes, oh, you should see some of my friends' photos. So my friend Mike Livingston showed him some photos, and he went, wow, that's exactly what we're looking for. And that led to my first photo essay in Nebraska land.
I will never forget. I remember one photo in particular, having lived in Nebraska and I had a subscription to Nebraska land at one time. And I remember seeing a photo of there was a goose decoy where the the rime ice had built up on the
Yes.
head, and then it separated itself like it was a perfect ice mold of the goose's head. And you snap that shot under, really great light conditions, and of course your magical, talented touch to it. And I remember that very specifically from a long time ago, that being a really cool and very influential photo.
Yeah, I've got a lot of amazing. Yeah, I looked back at those not too long ago, but yeah, that was the huge ice storm that everybody remembers way back when. And I was in Kansas City at the time with my parent or my wife's family. And I remember calling my cousin back home going, "Oh my gosh, I heard about this ice storm you had. You got to get to the river. It's got to be insane. There's got to be geese all over the place. You got to get up there." And he goes, "Calm down. I am. I'm getting things ready. We have no power at the house here, but getting things situated, and I'm going to run up to the river and hopefully hunt the afternoon." And then he stopped like in mid-sentence, and he goes, "Uh-oh." And all of a sudden, I could actually hear it over the phone. It was like thunder coming. And actually what it was like a row of like 30 to 40 telephone poles just dominoing down by his house.
Oh my goodness. From all the weight from the ice?
All the weight of the ice. And
wow.
Yeah, it was a mess. But yeah, we went up there. That was like 2 or 3 days after that storm, and there was still ice on those decoys falling off. And yeah, there was, because we'd hunted before that and we just left everything out thinking it was just going to rain, and then the forecast came. I got a mojo that's just completely covered in ice dripping off, and it's kind of apocalyptic.
It's like really a fairy tale of crystal glass, like this, this place where like Tinkerbell would live or something. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
And like all things goose hunting, the geese were gone. They were there for about a day, and there was nothing to eat. I mean, literally there was 2 to 3 inches of ice on everything. So the geese were there for one solid day. They got up, sun rose up the next morning, and they went south.
So you were stuck taking photos of decoys.
That was it. There was nothing. I mean, yeah. I mean, I was back when when the season ended, like January 8th, and that was it. Nothing else came down. The rest of the season was horrible. But yeah.
Jess, you were going to say something?
I was. So not only are you an avid waterfowl hunter, but you are also an avid fly fisherman, and you put out some great stuff from that too. Talk about, because I really relate to this when I read kind of the email that you had sent, that you use a lot of your practices and techniques photographing fly fishing and apply that to waterfowl and vice versa. And I find that really interesting because sometimes I'm trying to recreate shots in the woods that I've taken in the streams. So why don't you talk about how you kind of translate your hunting photography into fishing photography, and likewise?
Yeah, in fact, on our wedding 25 years ago, when we were in Dillon in Silverthorne, Colorado, my wife went shopping at the shopping mart there where the Blue River runs through a town. And there's a photo of the Blue River. That's a little bit farther north of Silverthorne. But yeah, I remember watching these guys fly fishing. I'm just mesmerized by it. Well, then I started just visually, it was just awesome. So I would just look at everything I could. But as my photography went on, I was always keeping an eye on fly fishing and what they were doing. Brian Grossenbacher, I think that's his name. He always fishes with Carter Andrews. Go back, Jose Wahebe, Jay and all that crew way back when, back in the early aughts. The stuff that he did was just amazing. And a lot of that stuff, what I was telling you, like real wide open stuff. And back then when I was looking at waterfowl photography or just hunting in general, it was just so stagnant. It didn't seem to have much movement. It was just it was bland. And I would look at that stuff in fly fishing or skateboarding or something like that, especially fly fishing, and just see the angles completely different, and a lot of color, a lot of movement, wide angles. It was something I liked, and I would apply those things. Like I remember one photo specifically, there was a guy and he had a net and he was reaching it out. And when you that 16 to 35, you can put that net at the bottom, in the corner of it, and just get the whole panoramic behind him. Yeah, there's a net. That's actually the 24 to 70, I think, is what that one was. That's Max Barta in Wisconsin.
I just met him up in South Dakota a few
Oh, what a kick. Yeah. Anyway, but then what I did, instead of using a net, I had my buddy reach for a decoy, and it was, for a while there, it was everything I took with that 16 to 35 or 10 by 22 got in DU. It was just amazing. And whether it was wide open or just really narrowed in, almost a macro shot, it was something I don't think they'd seen for a while. And
I think I think we talked about this before, but the fly fishing industry, the skateboarding, the
yeah,
snowboarding, the rock climbing, like the extreme adventures, and then you throw fly fishing in there, it brought art to the outdoors. And for a long time it really took a while for that to transcend into the hunting industry. And you really, I mean, let's face it, you really brought that to the forefront with your publications. And now obviously I mean, everybody's after the 16 to 35 or 11
yeah.
to 22 or whatever 14 millimeter prime. It's like,
I get into like
I'm
just
going macro,
stuff
man.
on them.
Yeah. I remember one time you said, you remember on one of our conversations, I think I was going out and you're going in, or we were going opposite directions there at one time.
Right.
Yeah.
You wear a black shirt, I'll wear a white one.
Yeah.
But that was when there was enough room for two people to do two very different things and
Yeah.
develop their own niche. And now it's kind of like, well,
Oh,
if I do this, it's going to look like that guy's.
yeah, exactly. It's tough to come up with something new. Yeah.
It is, but
Gotta
it's
constantly experiment. Those wide angle lenses, though, they really have a lot of room for play, and just, I mean, from every different angle, your shot looks different. And I've been shooting with my 16 to 35 a lot lately too, and a lot of overhead shots. I almost fell in the river the other day because I'm up there and I got over my head, and I'm trying not to get my feet in the shot, and I'm like, I practically fell in trying to take fish photos. Similar, actually, a really similar photo in Montana that I have of my husband and our friend fishing.
Yeah, that photo couldn't have been any more perfect. We were in Wisconsin. You can actually go on rivers. In Nebraska, as Jake would know, man, you don't cross a fence. I mean, you don't set foot on a lot of. So there's this
go bridge to bridge in Nebraska. If you're going to float the river, you got to go bridge to bridge
and don't touch the bottom. Yeah. So we're getting on this golf course to go steelhead fishing. And Max and Zach and Nathan Bender they're going straight up the river. I'm like, there's no way I'm going on a private golf course. And they're like, no, it's okay. It's all right. You can do this in Wisconsin. So I'm holding back. And it just so happened that they got about 100 yards in front of me, and they spotted some nice fish, and they caught one. So I got the whole action sequence of them jumping off this 10-foot bank, running down the river. And right where this is at was a bridge to go from one hole to the next. And they fought the fish right in front of me. It was just, wow. I mean, you couldn't have planned it any better. I mean, there's like 50 photos in that whole series and it was heavy, raining, downpour. It was, it's a testament to that 1DX Mark II and that, I think that was the 70 by 200 perhaps. No, it was the 20. It was a 24 by 70.
I was just going to ask you what lens you shot that with.
Yeah, 24 to 70 with a polarizer on it, and I had that thing cranked. I'd have to look at it, but it was like 6400 ISO just to get enough, keep the speed up on it to capture. Might have been 800th of a second, but it played out so perfect. And then right after that, I got a bunch of photos of Zach back up against this huge bridge. Train trestle bridge with a big curve, and it is absolutely downpouring. And the black and white is beautiful. You got the chrome of a fresh hen that had just made it up the river, and all the rainfall around it. It was.
I remember that looked like a Sims brand shot.
Yeah, it did, and that's kind of
elements. They have so much of the like the Gore-Tex in their products and stuff. All their photos showcase the crazy elements, and you got the rain and the hail, and I like to get really extreme photos, but I don't always like to take my gear out when it's hailing.
I'm a wuss when Doug and I get together, and let's say we put our cameras on the bench in the pit or the duck blind, His looks like it's been drugged behind a car and it still works really well. Mine looks like it just came out of the box. Because I
Yeah.
take, I really baby
You
my
take
equipment,
better
but
care of your equipment than I do.
I do. I take really good care of it. But at the same time, I look at your camera and go, maybe I should start like being more abusive to my equipment, because to put yourself in situations to get those epic shots, you gotta be abusive to your body. You gotta be abusive to your equipment, because you just
Yeah.
can't baby it all the time to get those kinds of shots.
I know, and that's Jess. I was asking you about a Sony a couple months ago, and that's my brother's. He shoots Sony, and
Mm-hmm.
I've shot side by side with him, and I've seen the Sony crash, and I'm like, gosh, it just I don't know. That's one thing, but then you see all these guys using them in all these different. I've talked about this with Phil Kanke a lot, about those Sonys, but yeah, that Canon 1DX and 1DX Mark II, and well, that photo you just had was on the blue, but
Mm-hmm.
about 3 miles upstream from that shot, one day I was taking a photo of that's Terry Crews, and I was out waist deep, and there were a bunch of fish rising in front of him, and he was sitting on a rock just waiting for him to come back so we could start fishing for him again. And I went the wrong way, and I went butt over tea kettle down the blue. I mean, it was to the point the only thing above water were the soles of my boots. I mean, it was just I was going down, and I had the 1DX Mark II with the 70 to 200 on it, and I was underwater for probably 5 seconds because I couldn't figure out where on the way I was in current, and I just put my hand out. And I remember pushing myself up against a rock. The camera's still in my hand, and I pushed it up against a rock that actually got me back up into the water. And then I struggled like a drowned rat to get back to shore. And I'm like freaking out, going, "Oh my God, I just toasted it." And I remember Terry looked back at me going, "Shh, come on, I got fish up here. What are you doing?" And I'm like,
"You guys are making too much noise. You're disturbing my fishing."
Yeah. So, and it was crazy. I opened it up, and the worst thing I did, I got water in my about 70 to 200. There was water that got inside of that. The worst thing I did, I should have just took it off and just set it down and don't just do nothing. And what I did is I took a shot because I turned it on and all the electricity came on, and this is great. I took a shot and all that moisture got sucked up into the sensor. And freaked out. So we went and fished another spot. And so this is Big Jim. So we go to Frisco, gonna fish 10 Mile, and I go, well, I think I'll just put it up where where the front window of the truck, and just let it bake. It was like 90 degrees that day, and I just see if I can get the moisture out of it. But everything was wet. Everything's wet on the inside. And I said, well, there's going to be moisture in the truck. And he goes, let's just leave the windows open. And I said, well, somebody will steal it. And he goes,
so what?
You might help insurance if somebody just stole it straight out of your truck. But
so
we left it there.
2 birds with one stone. You're either going to dry it out, or someone's going to steal it. One way or other, you come out of it a winner.
So I just found out on this dunking your electronics in the water. My mother-in-law had dunked her phone apparently in the pool, and electronic repair places and the Apple Store now have these machines that you can put your electronics in, and it like vacuum sucks the moisture out. So I'm like, dang, I wonder if you can take in like a camera or a lens if you've gotten moisture in it and have them like suck the moisture out of it. So one, if you guys dunk your stuff in the water, do not turn it on, don't touch anything, don't push buttons, take it out immediately and like put it in a bag of rice or set it somewhere dry, or check like the local tech repair shops, because apparently these like moisture vacuums, they're using them to repair cell phones, and I feel like they're probably big enough to put a camera body in or something. So I need to check. I mean, I hope I don't have to check into that anytime soon, but it's in the back of my head.
Some point. I mean, salt water is an electrical conductor. Fresh water is actually an insulator. So And I've actually dumped drones in the Poudre River, the Big Thompson, the Platte, every river I've been to, I've dumped drones into it. And the best thing you can do is to power it off underwater before you pull it out, so that because the fresh water is an insulator. So if you power it off and while it's insulated, then you pull it out of the water, you can pull the battery off and start dumping the water out and start your drying process without having any sort of conductive electrical conductivity going on, so that you fry your sensor or the brains on, your camera or whatever it is. So I'm glad we talked about that and you opened that conversation up, just because that's a really great lesson for people to know.
I want to find out where I can buy one of these machines. Can you imagine how much money I would make if I'm Delo cell phone repair shop, people who get their phones wet and just suck the water out of all their electronics? I would make a killing.
People are Googling it right now, Jess.
Yeah, I need to get one of these.
You just ruined your only shot.
If any of you guys work at the Apple store, the Verizon store, let me know where I can get one of those.
I'm trying to think how you could build one of those into a camera case where you just wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I'll just hook it up and seal it to a plexiglass box, stick your camera in it.
We'll design a backpack that has a built-in lens and camera dryer.
I'm quitting this show, actually. I'm just going to strictly focus on this now.
No, you can't go, Jess. I tried to do one without you, and I got 300 views on it. Doug, let's talk about the pivotal point in your career, when, besides going from, employed professional to freelance photographer, when you talked about, being a stay-at-home dad, what photo or what opportunity really, elevated you to that next level?
I think
why?
It was probably two things. It was first, that Nebraska land article. Mm-hmm. And then what I was sharing with Jess. It was John Farrar gave me one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received. Is I was complaining about all the young punks that were at all the marshes. I didn't think they were respecting the sport. $1,000 worth of goose calls around their neck and brand new, custom decoys. And I'm like, geez. And, they're just smashing birds and killing limits. And John said, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, Doug, at one time you were like that, weren't you? And I said, yeah, I guess I was. And he goes, well, that's all part of it. It's all part of it. You got to embrace all of it. He goes, if you're going to take photos of this or anything, be fishing or hunting, he goes, you just got to embrace it all from the beginning to the very end. And yeah, and it totally opened my eyes, and I became less of a snob at that precise moment. I mean, I was like, yeah, and it does. And I love to watch people go through the processes and hear my friends complain about other.
Oh no.
Uh-oh, Doug, I think we lost you.
Oh, I'll be back.
There you go. I can still see you. Yeah. But yeah, that was it. And then I got the call to the big leagues to go take photos for Wade Bourne on a Ducks Unlimited article in Devil's Lake. And when Wade Bourne says, hey, you think you might want to take a photo of this? You take a photo of this. It was right at the very end. And I didn't, it was a great sunset with, thousands of waterfowl, and it would have been a great closing photo of the story, but I didn't. But also, it also taught me that when you're on a story, you kind of stick with the story. And it was one of the times.
Elaborate on that, because that's a very important concept.
Yeah.
In visual storytelling, both video and photography, and expand on that a little bit, because that's really important.
Yeah. We were up there, and they were just supposed to do an article on basically public hunting. Kim and a buddy went up there, and then I just documented their times that they were up there. But it just so happened at that time, it was like the biggest storm since the Armistice Day, the famous, Veterans Day storm that killed all the duck hunters. It was the same parameters. We had 70-mile-an-hour winds for 3 straight days. Couldn't get on the lake. Couldn't even barely get out of the hotel. And I just kept thinking, man, we should be doing the story on the storm. I mean, the storm is epic, and I've got these huge waves crashing over the highway there right at Devil's Lake. And I just kept thinking we should be doing this, a young punk like myself should be, we should be doing this. And like, no, we got to keep doing it. But, the motor got froze up. They had like a Go Devil, and it froze solid. We couldn't get the boat off of the trailer. I mean, it was just one thing after another was going wrong. And I'm like, man, we should be doing a story on the storm. And so I shot it. I shot a lot of that. And I should have been sticking to the story of public hunting. And because I think when I handed in a bunch of photos and thought, I just slammed it, just knocked it out of the park. And basically I went 1 for 3 with a strikeout. I mean, it was just, they didn't have enough of my photos to complete the article. And that kind of taught me at that point in time, yeah, it's great to get those other stuff, but you need to stay on point and get the purpose of what you're there for first. And then, then there's extra time to take other photos. But
that's a great lesson, especially when you're on assignment.
Yeah.
What's going on? Are you like ghosts or something?
I think, I don't know what happened. The last time Doug adjusted his laptop.
Sorry.
Well, no. No, are we good now?
You're good now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's, it's a good lesson for young photographers or rising professionals to understand. When you're on assignment, you're paid to shoot an assignment. That's what you're there to do. And while I'm sitting there imagining while you're talking about this storm and all that, I'm going, that's where all these crazy goose hunters, like, they're not going to go home. They're going to try to figure out a way to make the shell stick on the ice so that 70-mile-an-hour winds don't blow them away.
Yeah, it was. I remember there was one time it was, this is the most epic thing. Okay, so in Devil's Lake, Jess, I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it's flooded. It's up about 30 feet. There's literally second-story barns that all you can see is the roof.
Wow.
We went to this one farmstead, and we had permission to hunt on it, and the wind was blowing 70 mile an hour, and there were probably 3,000 canvasbacks in a cattle corral on the back side of this barn that you could have snuck through the front end of the barn, which was dry, and down at the bottom of it was a door that was open. It would have been the most epic photos. You could have shot canvasbacks out of a barn door with the red barn and red canvasbacks and the
wow.
Just pelting rain. And I'm like, let's just hunt. I was like, please, let's just hunt this for a half hour, just for a half hour. It'll be so worth it. And they wanted to hunt mallards. And I was like, oh, no. No, let's hunt some canvasbacks. Because in Nebraska, we just never really see canvasbacks. And of course, they don't get to see many mallards. And we get them every day.
To piggyback what Jake just said, vice versa for especially young professionals and people just getting into the industry, you could be on assignment thinking you're going to shoot what you want to shoot, but it's not always the case. You said, you got stuck into shooting something else, so maybe your heart or your mind wasn't particularly into that, but you have to do it. And then the flip side of that is, at what point, if you is against your ethics, or if they're doing something you don't believe in or you don't support, and it goes to that extreme, at what point do you sacrifice your clients to say, like, hey, you know what, this isn't what I think we should be shooting. I'm not down for that. Have you ever been in a situation where you were hunting with people and you just didn't like the way they were behaving or the way they were respecting things? Like, how do you handle that situation?
That's leverage.
Yeah. You don't have to name anything. Don't name anything. But I
remember, man, that was a long time ago. But I remember having a text exchange or an email exchange, I think, with James Overstreet, because he said something about that one time. And there was one time where, there were a couple times where I just put the camera away. I'm like, wow, this is bad. And that was when I was first really, I wanted to get out and take shots of everything. So I accepted a lot of invitations to go hunting with people that I really didn't know the whole story or who was coming with. And and that's another great lesson. I rarely just say, hey, X company wants you to go out to North Dakota and take photos for a week. I rarely get that. Almost everything I do is with my buddies, and that I'm so dependent upon the guys that I hunt with for the images that I take. I mean, and it's great. We know what's going on. We're all ethical. We all know we're on the same page. Yeah, sometimes you get guys coming along that, I mean, you're like, why are you still shooting? You can't, whoa, and yeah,
I
I'm
think it's
sure
important I think it's important for people to know, especially people just starting out. Like, you can get yourself into these situations, and you don't want your name professionally attached to those personas, and it's okay to say no, or like to back out of a job if it's going down that road. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're not 100% into whatever the brand is asking you to do, I mean, I get so many things. Oh, well, I quit that job, or I didn't like that job because it wasn't really my thing. Well, guess what? Work isn't really your thing all the time.
Yeah.
So, but there's
coming from a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
There's two ends of that spectrum. So I think that's a learning curve for people to figure out exactly where they fall and where their standards lie. So
I think this is really something we've never talked about on this show, but I think it's beneficial that we're talking about it now, because you do have to be careful, because while you may not be participating in the hunt itself, you are if something's going on unethical or illegal or whatever,
legal, you're part of it.
you are a part of it. And particularly if you're taking photos and you see something, your photos become evidence. And if you are a part of that in that way, and then you get questioned by the local game and fish department or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or whatever it is, then you become, if you knew about it and you didn't turn someone in, you become an accessory to an illegal crime or an activity. So be really, really careful. I actually have that in my contract, that when I go do a job, everyone involved has to be moral and ethical, and everything has to be done legally 100%, or this contract is void and null. Even if I take the shots, I get paid for it, and something bad happens, boom, it's I get paid, and those photos aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, you need to protect yourself, especially if you're working with people that you never worked before, going places you've never gone before. If you don't, it's something you need to be aware of, because it can so easily happen. It's a slippery slope.
And voice up, like before the shoot starts, voice up.
Yeah, make sure people have their tags. Make sure there's no baits, things like that. I mean,
no guns during
people don't think about. Yeah,
exactly.
Great, I got this job. I'm going to go shoot this. I'm going to get all these photos out there for everyone to see. And then you get there, and I mean, I can just see like how easily it would be for somebody new to go down that rabbit hole. Like, oh, I really need this job, but hey, you're risking your neck. Not worth it.
Yeah, I've really closed the ranks. Just the guys because you always get all these invites every year, and I feel bad about turning them down. But yeah, I really love the crew that I hunt and guys all the time. Oh, you still there? Yeah, and I know them. We're all together on the same deal. But even last year there was a deal where I was hunting with friends, and we had a huge flock of lessers come in. And I'm like, no, we need like 5 birds. There's no way we can pick out 5. And I was like, no, we're not going to shoot these, and you just try to avoid those things. But you get wrapped up in the moment, and, all the birds coming in, and you don't know where people are shooting. And yeah, it can get tricky really fast. Not on purpose either. I mean, you could be trying to do everything by the law, and all of a sudden just something goofy happens. And
that's the trickiest part, man, when things happen spontaneously, and then all of a sudden you catch yourself right in the middle of it. You have got to go make decisions based on your morals, your beliefs, and all that. And honestly, most importantly, make decisions based on the law, because that's what it boils down to. If something were to happen and you get caught in the middle, they don't care what your morals and ethics are. They want to know what the law was and what you were doing there and why. And I want to see your hard drive. Now, there's a really great question that just popped up in the comments from Jordan Fromer. How do you deal with clients that are not very timely? They cancel and reschedule dates, and they aren't very timely with paying. That's a great question.
Yeah, I don't do any guiding. So all the clients I have to deal with are my buddies who can't get out of bed, you know? I've got a couple guys that if you say 6 o'clock at the door, they're here at 5:30. And I've got a couple that 6 o'clock means 6:30. So we're kind of like got an hour leeway, but no, yeah, you hung with guys that you don't. It's a good friend of mine, Travis Reiniger. You know the way they deal with it too. They've yanked clients right out of the pit as soon as they're unsafe. I mean, if something goes wrong, they've called the hunt right from the get go and just say, "I'm sorry, that's done. We're done.
Right.
You're done."
I
So
think
I think you just got to. I think you have to be. At the moment, yeah, I think you do have to be a jerk. You have to be a bit of an a-hole and to get your point across, at least if it's a safety issue. And you know, you can always apologize later when they're alive. You can't
or
when
not.
they're dead. Yeah.
Or not. Whatever.
Yeah,
And
or
I
not.
think his
Yeah.
his question may be directly um, asking about paying client. Let's address it this way. So
Oh,
if a
yeah.
client, let's isolate
Oh,
this and say that
okay.
maybe some of the clients that you might get that may be um, unlikely to pay you in a timely manner are going to be up and coming brands that don't have
Oh,
the
okay.
budget for marketing and things like that. So then you end
Yeah.
up taking a bunch of shots and you turn these photos over to them when you're young and you don't get paid for them and you try to figure out how to collect your money. Well, if you learn your lesson and you figure out the solution starts before the shoot begins,
Mhm.
where you have it in your contract. They either pay you a deposit and you collect a non-refundable deposit, then they get the balance of the deliverables after the shoot and after you've edited everything. And if they don't pay, they don't get to play. They pay you and
Yep.
then you turn those goods over to them. That's how
Yeah,
you
stay
handle that.
professional. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
any time that kind of stuff arises, which isn't too often anymore, but especially beginning on both ends of my career, you have to start out just like you said. You have to lay out your terms. You need to keep up and communicate and act 100% professional. The first time you back down and be like, "Oh, I'll get it later. I'll catch up with you. We'll let it slide this time." Anything like that, that just lowers your level of professionalism in their eyes. So it's like you have to be the alpha. You got to be on top of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would imagine that happens to you. Does that have, I would think that in the wedding industry, is that,
Knock
I,
on wood, I've never been burned, but I've always been really astute with keeping people getting me paid. So I have a deposit for the wedding to book your date, and then 3 months before, half your balance is due. 1 month before, everything you owe me is due. So I'm not coming to your wedding unless you pay me.
yes, that's,
that's how you do it. It has to be laid out in your contract so that it's crystal clear. And then, I mean, at the end of the day, we manufacture, imagery. That's what we do. We take imagery and then we sell that imagery to our clients. And if they don't pay, they don't play. It's just the
Mhm.
way it is. It's no different than going to Walmart. You don't just walk into Walmart and go, "Oh, hey man, I'll be back. I'll pay you guys later."
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that
yeah,
too with negotiating and like how people haggle too. It's like I don't go to the eye doctor and be like, well, what do you think about
yeah,
$20 for those glasses? Like,
yeah,
How much would you charge me for this eye exam?
yeah,
I've been in here
how
yeah,
3 times. We're
how about
buddies,
I
and
wear them to a few parties?
yeah,
yes.
Will I get a
Oh,
discount?
yes.
Like, come on.
Yes.
we may be the most understood people in the world, photographers, and how we're supposed to get paid, and how we conduct business. Like for some reason, people think we're just full of freebies all the time.
Yeah. That's what, yeah, I'm kind of stuck in that limbo area right now where I'm not really cool enough to be paid like the big stuff. And, I'm below the, kind of the starting deals where, the companies will come up and just say, hey, we'll give you a jacket and a hat if you shoot us some photos, or here's a dozen decoys. And here's, you kind of got that product exchange going on. And yeah, it's tough to if the
think
deal is,
I mean, there's two ends of that. It can be good
yeah,
because you can
that's
build a relationship and lead into a
something
professional
else.
mutual. And other times it's just like they're just taking advantage of you. So it's this. I mean, I find that that's a hard line to walk to figure out where you're going to fall and to anticipate if you're going to end up in a paying relationship. So that's
Yeah.
a per basis kind of decision I think I make a lot of times.
Yeah, it's who they are, especially if you, well, like, as long as you guys have been in the industry, you have friends almost in every company, and it's some of them are better friends than others, and yeah, you'll say, yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. Oh,
Hmm.
thanks. Yeah, and yeah, and then some of them you just got to kind of feel them out,
Hmm.
what kind of their intentions are, and yeah,
Exactly.
or if there's an exclusive rights, or there's everything that goes with that, but yeah.
I think we all need to have we need to have an outdoor photographers summit. I was actually talking to, and lay some of these things out there because I think a lot of it has become part of the standard, and manufacturers and owners of companies and brands, a lot of them just don't understand how film and photography, from a professional marketing perspective works as a business where Lee Chose and I talk about this all the time, and I really do think we need to have a summit and some sort of gathering because I talked to Tony Bynum the other day, the president of the
A
uh,
Poma.
of POMA,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we talked about the same thing. I think the reason this has happened is because there's so many young people in the photography world now, with social media being so, such a huge platform, that it's a lack of education, and they're trying to get their foot in the door, and it's sandbag the market. And I think if we educate a lot of these young people on how to price things and how to conduct your business, then it may level things out enough to where we get back to business, because right now it's really tough because of all these
Yeah,
things that we're talking about.
yeah. I think I've talked to you one time about there's that podcast called Visual Revolution about skateboarding a lot, and it's really interesting to see that kind of happened in the skateboarding, snowboarding world back in the 80s and 90s. The same exact deal where they were trading products for photos, and it's written, and you kind of see where that has gone, or they talk about that a lot, and how to get out of that, or how to stay, it says manufacturer, how to stay in
Yeah,
that
right. It's
model.
great on there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's their
great
business
on that.
model's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and then how to break out on the other side. But yeah,
Yeah, you've got the two industries fighting. You've got like the photographers who are trying to
yes,
break that and then you've got
yeah,
the business end of things where they have their own summits on how to get free stuff out of people.
yes. Well, yeah, and they got cost benefit ratios they have to worry about every day too. And
Mhm.
if they can save some money on this side, they'll do it and
I
make
think
money.
It all
the
goes back to the
right,
insurance companies.
and lawyers. Yeah, exactly.
It's the
The
pharmaceuticals.
yeah, this list goes on and on. Airlines, luggage, and all that
Uh,
stuff, man. But it's like, I think the right way to do it, if we can just, we're running out of time, and I'm going to be quick, but the right way to do it is, we're artists, and we take we take photos, okay, and then we sell those photos. At the end of the day, the right way is, well, you buy my content, without if you want to pay for exclusivity, then we can talk about exclusivity. But right now, even through brand competition or exclusive rights to one photo, you pay for it, but that doesn't mean you have that photo and I can't use it for the rest of my life. You're buying the rights to utilize that to showcase your brand, which is what I took that photo for. But that's not your photo, that's my photo. I took it. If you want to buy it, then let's sit back
Yeah,
down and renegotiate this, because that costs a lot more money, because that was a really good photo and there's a lot of people that want to use it. Maybe I want to use that myself. So,
my favorite is
again,
you sell it to them for a specific purpose, like a social networking or website, and next thing you know, it's like a full page or a billboard somewhere, and it's like, geez.
yeah.
exactly. all of
Yeah.
a sudden they took something they paid you $300 for and turned it
Yeah.
into an $850,000 return on their
Campaign, yeah.
investment. Well, hey man,
Yeah.
where's my money? I'm a professional. I've got 3 kids and a wife that I have to feed, not to mention a mortgage, a truck payment, a car
I had
payment.
that happen with a wedding venue. They asked to share one of my photos from a wedding, and I'm like, yeah, you can share that online. And then a couple weeks later, I get a phone call from the bride, and she's like, did you know you have a billboard on the major interstate going into Philadelphia with my face on it? I'm like, sorry, there's a bug in here. I'm like, what are you talking about? And the venue didn't understand the rights of the usage that they gave them and created a
Yeah.
billboard campaign. So I had to call them up and like kind of like bring down the legal hammer and be like, you're making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars off of this. People are seeing this, like 100,000 people a day are seeing this and have no idea who took this photo. You didn't pay for the rights to use this photo. You didn't ask permission or get a model release or anything. My couple's pissed off at their faces on the highway, and it's like,
yeah, and just
It's all true.
Yeah, that's my brother. He's in advertising. He lives there in Colorado, but he was on a whole another he had the Microsoft advertising account for like 7 years. So he had like the Europe side of it. But he would tell me stories about how one ad agency or one advertising agency would pay $10,000 for one photo or try to go get the small photo and it was just, it's a whole game. Not only, so like in his industry, it was photographers, ad agencies, and the business people, and trying to weave your way through all of that. Where things show up where they're not supposed to, or rights and lawyers, and no wonder things cost so much back. Just the lawyer fees alone, just getting rights and contracts written out would be.
It's complicated and to have like a set amount of standards. Like I feel like it doesn't, people ask me all the time, what's your rate sheet? It's like, I don't have a rate sheet because everything is completely different, especially in the outdoors. There are so many variables from, no, it's my voice. There's so many variables of how much time and supplies and energy, hours and travel that goes into things. It's not like, I can take your photo and it's going to cost X amount of dollars. So I'm sure you guys run into that too. It's always custom.
I mean, people don't understand, and let's just get this out there. I don't mind going over for this. How much work is involved in the shoot itself physically. And you're beating yourself up, you're rolling around on the ground, you're laying in the roots of trees and climbing trees to get that shot and putting yourself at risk and all those things, not to mention the $10,000 or $12,000 worth of equipment that you have in your hand and in your backpack that you've invested in, which is no different than investing in a tractor if you're a farmer, or a kitchen if you're opening a restaurant, or whatever it is. That's your equipment, your capital, and your overhead that you have to pay for. Then you got insurance. Then you have to sit down and edit everything. Editing software costs money. High quality 5K retina big screens cost money, and all these things cost money and time. I mean, how long does it take, and how monotonous is it to go through and edit an entire portfolio from a 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 day shoot from a hunting adventure? And it's just like, you want this photo for how much? I don't think so.
Yes.
I worked my ass off to get that shot, and you just think that's not how this works, man.
Yeah, my wife has noticed that too, where I'll go out and shoot for a day and then I'm editing for at least 2 straight days, and she's like, "What? I don't understand. What? You got things you need to do here. Kids need to be picked up. Let's separate."
So what you're telling me is you're making $6 an hour for that one shoot.
Yeah.
You were going for 5 days.
Isn't it sad? Because I think you could boil it down sometimes and it's like, holy crap, like I could be making more money hourly at McDonald's.
Yes.
Like sometimes it gets to that point and you're like,
Yeah.
You know how people that own Harleys, their Harleys are spit shined and they're parked in the living room. They take care of them because people have invested all their money in that one motorcycle, and they live in a a shack or a trailer or whatever it is. And photographers are the same. We invest all of our money, we're constantly upgrading our equipment and having to get new equipment because we trash it in rivers or lakes or whatever, or they fall off cliffs or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, even if you did get paid $3,000 for a shoot in the mountains or 5,000 or whatever it is, you dropped a camera and a lens, but you have to replace. So you might as well subtract, $6,000 out of that. Well, all of a sudden, I'm back in the negative. I just lost $2,000.
Yeah.
But hey, I went on a sheep hunt and it was really fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of exposure from that.
Yeah. I get a lot of exposure. Yeah.
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 You're really going to get out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the whole Instagram deal too. Yeah. And that's, yeah, exposure.
To be clear, though, there are still companies, and we work with them too. There are still companies who understand the process, and it's fantastic. And those people should also join our summit when we plan it.
That's right. And we're going to have this summit in Fort Collins at the town pump.
Yes, that'd be it. Yeah, that'd be perfect. But I still like all those. Yeah. I do a little bit for Sitka every now and then, and Avery. I know everybody's still there with Avery and Bandit, and they're all great guys, and I'd like to see what they're doing. And it's too small of an industry to make a wave because people will know one way or another. But
the bottom line,
it's all fun if you do it right.
Yeah, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
That's right. And I think the bottom line is you stay professional, you sustain your integrity as a person and all those morals and ethics that you have, and you transcend that into your business end of things, and things come around because the longer you stay with it and you hold on to those values, and then you associate with the right kinds of people like we're doing right now at this very moment, then those things continue to transcend into your business, and that elevates you and it keeps you associated to the brands that don't ask questions about how you're going to get paid. They already know how this works because they've been doing it for a long time, and they utilize professional photographers and cinematographers to develop content for them because they know they're going to get what they pay for. So, all you young people out there, man, just maintain your rights, maintain your integrity, and associate yourself with good people. Your world becomes much, much smaller, and then everything starts falling into place.
Yeah.
Amen.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doug. I was really looking forward to this. I've been thinking about you a lot. Once we started this show, we're into double digits now. It's episode 10. You like I said in the beginning of the show, you were an influencer in the outdoor photography world. You still are, but you started the whole, the really the bird photography, the action bird photography out in the field. And I remember one time at SHOT Show a long time ago, the publisher of a waterfowl magazine told me we were talking about doing some work together, and he said, just don't send me photos of birds with nothing but a blue sky in the background, because those suck. They're the most boring photos ever. I don't care if it's a double banded, radio collared, pintail, mallard, widgeon, triple hybrid freak duck of the world. Don't send it to me if you don't have a background in it. And your photos have always been very influential, very admirable. I've always loved your work. You know that, because I mean, every time you shoot something, I'm like, dude, that is freaking sick, Doug. And you're a great guy to boot. Thank you for everything you've done in the waterfowl industry and the fly fishing industry as well.
Yeah, I've enjoyed chatting with you over the last few months and interacting with you, and getting to know you better today was awesome. Really respect everything that you do, and we're really happy to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a ball. I've been following because you've been having all of my heroes on there, with Chose and Buckley, and I always love to see. Yeah, Buckley, that when you meet heroes, sometimes they never turn out. He exceeded he's so cool, and I need to be making a trip to Montana, to that Bozeman area, and he's on the list.
I'm going back in September. I can't stay away from there.
I'm going to go up in August. It's been a long time since I've been to Bozeman, but there's so many people that have, congregated in Bozeman now. I need to go up there myself. And how do we find you on social media? Where would you
Oh,
like people to go to find you, Doug?
Doug Steinke Photos on Instagram, DougSteinke.com on the web page.
That's Steinke.
KE. Yep.
Steinke.
Yep. And that'll get me. But yeah.
Well, thanks again,
Somehow.
and tell your dad I said hello. It's been a
Oh, I
while.
will. Yeah. You were talking your little deal with your son and that you wrote yesterday, and I love to just call my dad and get the fishing report and talk Husker football, and yeah, that those little conversations just mean the world. And yeah, sometimes they don't know it or you don't know it at the time, but that's always cool. But yeah.
No doubt.
All right. Well, peace
Have
out.
a great day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Later,
Bye.
brother. Wow.
That was awesome.
That was a fun conversation. I knew it would be. Doug is a great guy. I'm glad we finally got him on the show.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Moving forward, we talked about last week adding some things to the YouTube channel. So we'd like your feedback. We're going to start adding in some tutorials for like our most asked questions and things that we find that you guys are interested in. Some really quick little videos on how-tos, little tricks of the trade and things like that. So keep an eye out on the YouTube channel. Right now, you can just go onto YouTube and search Outdoor Cameraman Experience. All of our episodes will pop up. Once you guys watched enough, we can get a customized channel link, and that'll be easy. I'll send you right there. But you can search it and find us real easy. Then we have also got our decals and stickers, which we can send out to you guys, and you can share the love on your coolers and your packs and all that kind of stuff. So we like hearing from you. We like hearing your feedback. Send us messages. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm leaving. I don't even know when I'm leaving. I think Saturday or Sunday for the Yukon. I'll be gone for hopefully not that long, but probably 10 or 12 days. So we may miss 2 episodes moving forward, but we've already got guests lined up. Jess and I talked about yesterday getting our schedule, a formal schedule written out. And like she said, we are going to be shooting some tutorials in this setting, in the show setting, but we're going to post those things up. They'll be shorter. They'll be 2 to 7 minutes long. And they're going to, we're going to start broadening our horizons on the outdoor cameraman experience. So definitely go by our YouTube channel, subscribe, and check it out.
You get notified whenever we put something top secret up.
That's right. Well, Jess, thanks again for a great show and great conversation. It was great seeing you, and we'll be in touch.
All right. See you later, Jake.
Bye.
Bye.